With pure fiction being around for a while now, I wondered how difficult it could be in order to obtain a 3-star rating for pure fiction without using any 5-star unit. After thinking it through, I decided on the following rules while attempting this challenge. 1. No 5-star characters allowed at all. This includes Trailblazer and any of the standard banner units. It felt that if Himeko was allowed, it would be too easy, as the combination of Himeko and Herta is just too overpowering in this iteration of pure fiction. 2. No limitations on Eidolons. All my 4-star units are already E6, and it's not possible to lower it. Hence, I've decided not to limit the Eidolons. 3. No restriction on light cones. I decided to let all light cones be used. With the challenge not allowing any 5-star units, it already restricts the units that I can use, and it already seemed difficult enough without considering the light cone issues. Moreover, I might not yet have leveled enough light cones in order to make a restriction on light cones. With all of this in mind, I decided to push forward with the challenge. In order to reach 3-star at Pure Fiction 4, it requires careful planning and team setup. First up, I decided to look at the Whimsicality and Cacophony of Pure Fiction. The Whimsicality applies Shatter upon using an ultimate. Shatter then deals damage onto the enemy and the adjacent units upon start of the turn or when they are defeated. From my experimentations, it seems that Shatter deals roughly 20% of the normal mob's health, which was crucial to know when building my teams. As for the Cacophony, there are 3 of them: Erupt, Excitation, and Rupture. Erupt applies an additional Shatter upon ultimate. Excitation provides an 80% chance on enemies receiving a Shatter stack upon entering the battle. And Rupture increases ultimate damage by 15% if enemy targets are defeated with Shatter, stacking up to 20 times. Both Erupt and Rupture requires the use of ultimate to apply Shatter stacks in order for us to benefit from it, whereas Excitation does not. Since I've decided to only use 4-star units, I would have to consider all of these while deciding on my attempt. As of 1.6 update, there are only 19 4-star units available, meaning that I would have to use nearly half of the units here for the 2 stages. After careful decision, I decided to remove the following characters from the team building: Dan Heng, Su Xiang, Luca, Hook, and Arlen. The main decision in removing these units is because they are mainly single-target units. With Pure Fiction, I needed units that could attack multiple units at the same time in order to clear the mobs quicker. With these units out of the way, I now only have 14 units left that I could pick from. It is here where I took a careful consideration in the weaknesses of the 2 nodes. In the first node, the primary weaknesses are physical and ice. With that in mind, I knew that Herta is definitely the unit I want to place on this team. She could attack all enemy units with her skill and ultimate. She also has follow-up attacks which can clear the mobs efficiently. Next up, I decided on Pela. I wasn't sure how much damage I could do, but Pela's defense shred was definitely going to be helpful. Moreover, at E4, Pela's skill could also reduce ice resistances on enemies, allowing ice units to deal more damage. For my 3rd unit, I decided on March 7th. Having her on the team provides a sustain unit, plus her ultimate is also an AoE attack that could deal damage to the enemies. This was extremely beneficial in Pure Fiction, as the current iteration of Whimsicality was related to ultimates that deal damage on enemies. With this all in mind, I wasn't too sure about which unit I should use for the last spot. It was here that I decided to run a team that centered on applying Shatter. The main reason was because all of the units currently in the team had ultimates that could apply Shatter on all of the enemy mobs at once. With it, I could quickly defeat the mobs even if the team didn't do too much damage at all. In the end, I decided on using Qing Chue. This was mainly because it allowed me to have the potential to deal massive damage using her skill and her enhanced basic attacks. But more importantly, she was pretty much the only unit left that had an ultimate that could attack all units. The only other options were Serval, Sampo, and Gui Nai Fen. For Serval and Gui Nai Fen, I decided that they would most likely be better options for the 2nd node. As for Sampo, I opted not to use him due to the fact that he would likely be a worse option when compared to Qing Chue. It's not like I didn't use him cause I haven't fully leveled up his traces yet. In addition, the elite mob in the first wave was also weak to quantum, hence, it would definitely help a bit. As for the cacophony selected, I tried all three of the options. As mentioned earlier, all of their ultimates attacked all enemy units, meaning that I could apply Shatter on all units. As such, Erupt and Rupture had the most potential. Unfortunately for Rupture, I felt that it was too difficult to stack up sufficient amount of stacks because the majority of the enemies would die due to Shatter. With this happening, we wouldn't be able to get Rupture stacks since they were not defeated with Shatter stacks on them. In the end, I selected Erupt for the first node. Even with all of these planning, it was still difficult to reach a score of 30,000, which was my goal for the first node, as this means that it would have half of the points required for the 3-star clear. The main issue with this setup is that the damage was mainly focused on the Shatter stacks. Moreover, Shatter would only proc upon the start of the enemy's turn, or when they are defeated. Freezing via March 7th's ultimate or weakness breaks would further delay the enemy's actions, meaning that it would take more time in the cycle to defeat the enemies. Furthermore, you need to know when to hold back onto the ultimates, as it wasn't smart to apply too much Shatter stacks. As mentioned earlier, one Shatter stack would deal around 20% of the normal enemy's HP. This means that with Erupt, one ultimate would deal 40% HP with Shatter. As it would also affect adjacent units, that pretty much means that it would easily deal more than 80% of the HP when the Shatter activates for the units. There was really no benefit from going above 4 Shatter stacks on enemies, unless it was on the Silvermane Lieutenant or Gepard. Even after multiple attempts, I wasn't able to reach my goal of 30,000. But had gotten quite close to it. I believe it was mainly due to the inherent nature of this team where Shatter was the key damage. Because I needed to wait until the Shatter proc, it delayed my ability in dealing damage to the enemies and took more time off than necessary. With only 5 cycles allowed in the node, this was a crucial issue on reaching the 30,000 score I needed. As such, I needed my second team to carry me. With the score of 28,650, it meant that my second team needed to get at least 31,350 in order to obtain 3-star in this stage. In the second node, the primary weaknesses were fire and lightning, but at this point in time, the only units that I had left to use in this node are as follows: Shuiyi, Asta, Natasha, Serval, Ting Yun, Sampo, Yukong, Lynx, Guanai, Fen, and Hanya. Out of the 10 units, 2 of them were healers and 4 of them were buffers. As such, I decided that it wasn't a good option to focus on ultimates like in the first node, even though Guanai, Fen, Serval, and Sampo all had ultimate that could apply Shatter on all enemies. Plus, it would be difficult to maintain the skill point usage. With this in mind, I understood that the cacophony that I would use for this node was Excitation, as it didn't care about the ultimates being used. As for the teams, I decided that it was better to run a hypercarry team with Asta, Tingyun, and Hanya. The reason behind the selected units was because Asta and Hanya could both increase speed, allowing my units to have more turns. This was extremely beneficial when I only had 5 cycles to reach the required goal. Hanya could also help with the skill point issues that I could be facing because of the constant use of skill to help with the energy regeneration on my units. As for Tingyun, she would be an amazing buffer with the energy regeneration provided by her ultimates, as well as the attack and damage she provides. Out of the 4 units that could be used as hypercarry, I decided that Serval would be the best choice as she had blast basic attacks, blast skill, and an ultimate that could attack all units. In addition, the other choices that I had were Guanai, Fen, Sampo, or Shuiyi. Guanai, Fen, and Sampo felt that a lot of their damage source was coming from their dots. As such, it wouldn't be a great option as I wanted the enemies to be defeated before reaching their turns. As for Shuiyi, she was an option, but as the enemies were not weak to quantum, Serval just stood out as the better choice. Not to mention that Shuiyi ultimate was a single target move, meaning it wouldn't apply Shatter to all enemies. No sustained units were used, as I knew that getting more than 30,000 in points was going to be difficult enough. so I could only hope that the damage will be spread more evenly between my units. This team was a lot better than I expected in the second node. However, the issue was how the damage was going to be split between units and the RNG that you would face on whether the enemy units would enter with Shatter or not. With Asta and Hanya's speed buff, we would typically be able to reach the required points to get 3-star. The only issue was whether the units would survive against the enemy's attacks, as we were running 3 Harmony units that had low defense and HP for the most cases. With all of this in mind, I'll speed up the rest of the battle so that you could watch the rest of the fight quicker. In the end, I managed to clear the second node barely, as a few of my units had been downed by Serval. I did in the end reach a 60,000 score, meaning that it was possible to complete the stage with 3 stars. I'm not sure what kind of challenge I will do next, but if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I'll be showing off my character stats, light cones, traces, and eidolons that I used next. Hope it helps.